Just a few reminders to please silence your cell phones and no filming or videotaping in the interview room area. We'll have 2 microphone holders in the room, so please state your name. Raise your hand, state your name and affiliation before asking a question. We'll also be doing quickie quotes, so if you could please direct your questions to a specific student athlete, that will help with our quote takers that are remote. ASAP entire quote, sorry about that, yeah. They'll be doing quickie quotes in the locker room. These chairs rolled this year. I'm sorry, go ahead. Can you take pictures with your phone? No flash, but you can take a picture. Like a 5-minute intermission. And he's coming from a radio interviews too, so who knows? Not me. That's a good one. Mississippi State's locker room is now open from 11:35 to 12:05. They are making their way to the dais now. Roll this time.
Rolly. I was like, this one came out really fast. Thank you. I'm just saying.
We're going to wait for Coach to join us. On the dais for Mississippi State will be head coach Vic Schaefer. We have student athletes Blair Schaefer, Morgan William, and Victoria Vivians.
I can sing a song for y'all. Do y'all want me to sing?
Let's do it. Go ahead.
What do you want to sing?
That song you've been having on repeat.
I don't know the words. Oh, you talking about that song?
No, please don't. Please don't.
I forgot. What is it called?
I hate the song.
You don't like it?
Because you play it so much.
I ain't even played it since we been here. point guard.
Head coach Vic Schaefer. We're going to start with an opening statement from Coach Schaefer, then we'll take questions for the student athletes. We'll then have the student athletes go back to the locker room and continue with Coach. Please raise your hand and state your name and affiliation, and wait for a microphone for those questions. First, we'll start with Coach.
Okay, give me 1 second. You ready? Hey, just thanks for being here. Appreciate everybody in the room. This is we're really excited to be here. I'm sure as the other three teams. Obviously, I'm very proud of this group, this particular team. Our four seniors have meant a lot to our program. These three were part of that first ranked class that we ever signed at Mississippi State, and they've been with us all 4 years. Rowe's been with us 3 years, transferring in, but these three have they've seen a lot. They've won how many? 127?
Yeah.
They've won 127 games in their career, and they've just really meant a lot to not only our program, but to our university and our community, and obviously have set a standard at Mississippi State in women's basketball that'll be hard to duplicate in years to come. Our team's been special this year. Obviously, when you're 36-1, you've got a really unique and special team. Done it 33 years. I've never had one like that, and you know, you can do it another 33 and never have it again. But they've weathered every storm that's come their way. They've worn a bullseye on their back all year for what we accomplished a year ago. And then as the year went on this year and they were undefeated up until 32-0, they wore that bullseye. And that's extremely difficult to do. I've marveled at and been amazed at this group, this team. But when you really step back and look at the kids, these seniors in particular, you understand how we've gotten it done. Obviously, we've got a tremendous challenge in front of us in Louisville. I've known Jeff a long time. We actually talk during the course of the season every now and then, and he's got him a heck of a team. They're extremely multi-dimensional, multi-talented, can do a lot of things to hurt you. Offensively and defensively, they're a mirror image. When I look at them, I think we could probably, you know, both our teams are very, very similar. And they're tough, they're physical, aggressive, and so it's a team that's a lot like mine on that end of the floor. So we've got our work cut out for us. We are really focused on them. I do believe we've had some good weeks, a good 3 days of practice, and we'll see how it goes tomorrow night.
Thank you, Coach. We'll take questions for the student athletes. We'll start right up here, and Michelle. Front row here.
Hi, good morning. Michelle Smith from The Athletic. Victoria, I'll start with you. Do you have an appreciation, you guys are back here at the spot that you were last year. Do you have a sense of how hard it is to get back here now? I mean, what did you feel like in terms of how difficult it was to get back to this spot?
It's always difficult to get back here because you got to go to the NCAA tournament. Like, all of the teams in the tournament are great, so it's tough every night. And I feel like it was difficult this year, but we made it.
Question over here, Adam.
Good morning. Adam Minikino from a Commercial Dispatch for Morgan and for Blair. You're fond of looking at Coach's green folder there for the opponents. I'm not sure if he has one for Mississippi State. He remarked about the similarities. What's the challenge of playing a team that has so many similarities that you guys do?
I think we just have to understand how we make other people feel when we play as hard as we do on defense. So we're going to have to counter that and get open and actually have to get into them to get open. We're going to have to be crisp with our passes, just understand everything we're trying to take the other team out of. That's exactly what they're going to do as well. So,
Question in the back, Bill.
Bill Rabinowitz of Columbus Dispatch for Morgan. Obviously, the Final Four last year was quite an experience for you. Can you reflect on that and what it's like to be back in the Final Four for you?
Last year's experience, it was great. Beat UConn, of course, and just to get back here, it's a blessing. You know, it's hard to get back here 2 times in a row. So, you know, I'm glad we came back. We made it back. We worked hard for this.
Question right here.
Hi, this is Tanya Kelly from Pulse Broadcasting. What do you see as your defining moment to get you to this place right now?
Is that for Morgan?
Yes, it is. I'm sorry, from Morgan. What has been your defining moment this season?
To get us back here.
I don't know.
Like the course of the season is building.
Well, SEC definitely, you know, it's tough. I feel like it definitely prepared us, especially for the NCAA tournament, because every game in SEC is definitely tough. Everyone's good in SEC, so when we get to NCAA, it's win or go home. So we're gonna get everyone's best game. So I feel like that really helps us. And then just being #1 seed overall, targets on our back. So, that gives us motivation to go out there because we don't want to get upset or anything.
Question, Michelle?
Yeah, this one's for Blair. Blair, aside from the X's and O's, what's the feeling you guys have to recapture that you had when you came here last year? Is there a sentiment or some sort of confidence or something that you guys need to come with that you came with last year as well?
Honestly, I feel like we have a better vibe about us this year because we know our seniors know what it's like to be here. And until you actually get to this stage and play on the stage, you really don't know what it's like. People can tell you what it feels like, but you don't know for yourself. And so I feel like this year we understand the feeling, and I feel like we're very focused and mentally just in the moment. And I feel like that's what we have to be if we're going to be prepared to play Louisville tomorrow.
Question right in the front here.
Doug Feinberg, the AP. Blair, I'm sure you've mentioned or asked this or answered this many times, but what's it been like playing for your dad for the last few years? And just, there's only at most 2 more games playing for him. So just what's it been like for your career to have your dad be your coach and obviously your dad?
We have a really special relationship to make it work. We separate father, daughter, coach, player really well. But it's been a true blessing. He is so well known and looked at through other coaches in this industry, and to be able to play for one of the best and him be your dad at the same time, you really can't replace that. So I'm blessed.
Question right here. You can get that. Ryan, right in the middle. Adam.
I'm the best dad, too, by the way, Doug.
Question for Victoria. This game is a lot more than just individuals. In looking at the scout, can you talk a little bit about what you've seen from Asia Durr and what kind of challenge that presents for the team tomorrow?
Asia Durr, she's a great player. She can create for herself and her teammates, and I feel like we faced it kind of all year, like where they have certain players that can do certain things on their team. I feel like it's going to be a team effort to stop her, and not just a one-person thing. So I feel like just the overall game is going to be team effort, offensively and defensively against her.
We're going to take one final question for the student athletes in the back there.
Danielle Lerner, Louisville Courier-Journal. For Morgan, how much of a factor do you think tempo is going to be in this game?
Yeah, I feel like we're just going to go out there and play our game. I know last time we played, they wanted to track meet or whatever, but, we just went out there and played our game and let the rest handle itself.
Thank you, ladies. It'll be available in the locker room until 12:05. We'll continue with questions for Coach Schaefer. We're going to start right back there with Bill in the middle. Ryan, can you get him the mic? Mic right there. Sorry.
It's Bill Rabinowitz from the Columbus Dispatch. I asked Morgan about last year's Final Four. She became instantly famous overnight, and then she didn't play that much in the final. How did she deal with that, and how has she responded this year to being, kind of famous?
Yeah, I think she's dealt with it fine. I mean, the thing about last year is so unfair to her. It's unfair to me. I'm a big guy. I can take it, but to write some of the things that were written about her, really unfair. And if anybody had done their homework on my team, they would have realized last year Jasmine Holmes played 25 minutes against DePaul in the second round, had 14 points, 8 or 7 assists, and 1 turnover, and played 25 minutes. Nobody wanted to write about that. They wanted to write about a fourth quarter where I just felt like Jasmine Holmes was playing a little better and had a little more energy. And that's why she played, and we did that all year. And if you followed us this year, we've done the same thing. We've ham and egged it with them all year long. Mo right now is playing really well. She's played a lot of the bulk of the minutes here lately because she's playing so well, but I'm blessed to have two great point guards in Morgan and Jazz that it's allowed me to redshirt three-time Gatorade Player of the Year, Maya Taylor, who's a point guard. Now, that's how fortunate we are. So, you know, Morgan Williams is a competitor. She is a tough, competitive cuss. I mean, she is the ultimate point guard. She is a hard worker. She is like one of my own. And some of the things that were speculated and written about last year, not fair. And I'm glad I've had the opportunity to bring that up because that kid didn't deserve any of that. She made a big shot on Friday night, but there were so many other things that went through for our team to have a chance to win that game, you know, during the course of the game. But she made a big shot. But then to have everything that was said on Sunday, not very fair.
Question right here. Doug.
Hey, Coach, Doug Feinberg, the AP.
Yeah.
Two-part question. One, are you the best dad in the world, as you said? Seriously, though, I remember we sat last year at the Final Four, and it was brought up how you guys had the 60-point loss to UConn as this theme for the year.
Yeah.
Was there something, I mean, not similar to that, but some sort of message or something of that nature you guys had all season that was hidden until the Final Four, now you brought it out?
Sure. The dad piece, I try. You know, I try to be to all these kids too. I mean, I just love them to death like they're my own. You know, Doug, it's just a special group, and not only have my twins, but I've got 14 daughters. You know, and it's really, really special and unique that I really enjoy about my job. This year's been unfinished business. I think this team has tried to embrace that and done a great job with that. We have not run from the target on our back all year. We've talked about, hey, you're going to get everybody's best shot. You know, for what you did last year, you're going to get everybody's best game plan. Everybody's going to be excited to play you. We had a really good non-conference schedule. But then as the year went on, that target got joined by another target, which was the undefeated target, to go 32-0, and they've handled that like a champ. So really difficult to handle both of those things, and for these kids to do what they've done is quite remarkable. We didn't run from wanting to win a Southeastern Conference championship. We put a picture of their trophy, big picture, laminated it, put it on their lockers. I wanted them to see that every day. We won the Southeastern Conference. I mean, and that's so hard to do. So this team has embraced challenges, starting with the end of the season last year, what we wanted to try to get done this year.
Question, Jury.
Hi, Vic. Jury Longman with the New York Times. Just back to Morgan for a second. I'm sure not every kid that you've probably ever coached could probably be able to handle that, you know, coming in the games, not coming in some other games. What is it about Morgan that's allowed her to sort of persist through this? And she said earlier in the season that she was struggling with her shot a bit. Is there anything in particular that you guys did to work with her to, because it looks like it's fine now?
Yeah, no. First of all, Morgan's a great kid. She's, you know, Monica, her mother's done a tremendous job with her. But she's just a great kid, high character, tough, competitive. And so Morgan has, like I said, it wasn't anything new for us really last year. It seemed to be new for everybody else watching the game. So this year again, I've gone with who's hot, who's playing well, who's running our team right. And, you know, this year Morgan and Jazz both, they have so many weapons around them. Morgan hadn't had to score as much this year as she did in years past. Years past, we might not have had as many shooters or offensive weapons that we have this year. So her role changed as the point guard. Now here lately, she's shooting the ball well because she's been in the gym. She's really worked hard. Coach Deanna has been with her in the gym a lot, as all my coaches are with all our position players. But she's really worked hard on her shot, and you're right, she's shooting it really well, playing with a lot of confidence. She's got that presence about her that I like to see in all of our players, but especially a point guard. So I think that's the biggest thing with her right now is just her swagger, you know. And look, it's hard to have swagger if you don't have a skill set.
Question right here in the front.
Coach, your team came here last year and it was, you know, like Blair said, like they didn't really know what to expect. It was a new experience for everybody. Did that factor into the way you guys approach things, and how do you sort of recapture that newness when it's not new now?
Yeah, you know, I think obviously this time last year there probably wasn't anybody in the room that thought we'd do what we did, except people in my locker room. And so there was probably a little bit of a we had great focus and great preparation leading up to that ball game, but we also, I think, were, you know, when you're the underdog, there's a little different approach than when you come in now and we're still obviously going to play a great Louisville team, and but we're not playing a team that's won 111 in a row, so to speak, and so. But with this team, I think they've been here. They understand what's coming. Again, we have a tremendous amount of respect for Louisville, and we have a great understanding of what they present, the problems and the challenges they bring. And but this team has handled that all year, as they said, in the course of the season with the teams we've had to play against in our conference and in our non-conference. So I've shown them, you know, enough film on Louisville, and we know they're the winners of the ACC. They won the ACC tournament, and I know Jeff personally, and he and his staff, and know what kind of job they do. So our antennas are up.
Question in the back there.
Hi, Rob Aller, Columbus
Hey, Rob.
Dispatch. Hey, Vic, over the past decade, how have you seen the women's game change specifically, and or evolve, and how have you adapted to that?
Wow, there may not be enough time in the day. You know, number one, I just think the skill set of our players is so much broader. I think the coaching is really, really good. Staffs are really, really good. I think there's I think there's an importance placed by administrations on women's basketball. I know at my place, in Mississippi State, women's basketball is really important. They spend a lot of money on women's basketball. And I tell our kids that all the time. Hey, there's people investing in you. You know, we owe it to our administration, our fans. And so I think that's the thing I've seen is, you know, back when I started in 1990, just talking about the high school game, you know, the offensive coordinator was the girls' basketball coach. That's not the case anymore in high school. They're hiring girls' high school basketball coaches. And so I think then as you go through and go through the college game today, administrators are doing their homework. They want good people running their programs. They see the value that a women's basketball program can bring to a university, just like at our place. I mean, just 6 years ago, there's about this many people at my games. You know, now we got 10,000 in there. You know, this year we had over 10,000 4 nights. We averaged over 8,500. It's important. And so, but it's important because our administration started with them. It's obviously important to me, my coaches, and my players. So I think there's an investment on a number of levels, whether it's your players, your coaches, administration, that's really allowed it to become what it is today. And it's, you know, without talking about rule changes and things like that and freedom of movement and all that, I just think that's, there's so many things, so many other things that go into it, but then the skill set that these kids are developing in high school, AAU, things like that, it's just really improved, I think.
Question right here.
Yeah, Hugh Kellenberger, Clarion Ledger. Vic, what is the challenge? I mean, you've had all these girls 4 years, 3 years. They hear your voice every day for. Yeah. What is the challenge of getting them to continue to listen and be locked in and keep that message fresh?
Yeah, I think there's a trust factor, you know, with our kids and with my staff. I think there's a real, you know, credibility when you've done it as long as I have, you know, to have the staff that I have and what their backgrounds are. I just think our kids know that you know what, if we're saying something, if we're making a point to put it in a scouting report, it's important. And so, and I think, you know, we don't give in, you know. If we think our message is falling on deaf ears, we just don't throw our hands up and go, oh, well, you know. I think you keep coaching, you keep teaching, you stay after it. And so for our kids, you know, 27-7, 28-8, 34-5, now 36-1. I think the proof's in the pudding. So I think they have a real respect and understanding of, hey, if coach says it, then we need to listen and do it.
We have time for 2 more questions. We'll go in the back and then over here.
Danielle Lerner, Louisville Courier-Journal. Vic, as you mentioned, Louisville has a lot of threats offensively and defensively, very similar to your own team. But what are the main differences you see between the two teams?
You know, there may be a difference in, you know, T's a true back to the basket 5. Both their bigs can face up and do some things that way off the bounce. Once you get past that, you know, I think that in and of itself could be where we think we may have an advantage. It may be where they think they have an advantage. But after that, I think our teams are so similar. I mean, really, I think we both could flip-flop and coach each other's group, and terminology might be a little off, but it meant the same thing. And again, I think that's who Jeff is and how he coaches those kids, and the you know, the fit those kids have for his program are the same fit that we have for our program. You got to have tough, physical, aggressive basketball players. Well, you know what? If somebody describes your team, it doesn't matter what sport you're coaching, is a tough, physical, aggressive football, basketball, baseball. Well, you probably like that as a coach. That doesn't say anything about your skill set. And so I just think his team is, you know, we both mirror image each other from a standpoint of being tough, physical, and aggressive.
Question in the back corner.
Ben Dahl with Fansided. Coach, in the UCLA game, you saw a couple different defenses early on, and Victoria hit that bomb early on. Morgan hit a couple, but then Roe Johnson knocked down 2. What have you learned about her as an offensive player throughout this season to where you're really playing 4 around 1 around Tierra?
Yeah, you know, Roe, I've known it since we got her 3 years ago. When we got her 3 years ago, man, I thought she is a pro. Rashenda Johnson can do so many things with the basketball. She can take you off the bounce. She can create her own shot. She can stretch you deep. She can bail you out of some really bad sets and, you know, make shots. And I still believe that about Roe. Roe has really been that X factor for us that allows us to, you know, people run out of defenders some nights. You know, you can put a good one on Tori, or you can put a good one on T. You can put a good one on Roe. Well, there's 2 other players now, and you're out of good defensive players. And so I think that's the beauty of this team, is that you got to find all 5 of ours. It's hard to double off of any of them because they can all beat you. And but Rashenda Johnson has really been a tremendous addition for us and has made our team what it is today in my mind. I mean, we don't have Roe. We have a different kind of player there. Now people can guard us a little differently. And so she's really special.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you.
All right. Praise the Lord and go Dogs.
Connecticut locker room is open now. They are heading down to the dais now. Hello, how are you? Careful, ladies, these roll. We will wait for head coach Ariema. Per usual. Please make sure to silence all your cell phones. Again, we'll start with an opening statement from coach, and then we'll take questions for the student athletes, and then they will be available in the locker room.
Do you need me to do coach's opening statement? Hello. It's great to be here again for my 50th time.
Did they understand a word you said?
Oops, sorry. These roll.
What?
They roll.
I know.
Oh, yeah. Can I take that? Thank you. On the dais for UConn, head coach Gino Ariema, student athletes Kia Nurse and Gabby Williams. We'll take an opening statement from Coach Ariema, and then we'll take questions for the student athletes.
Can you just replay the one I did Monday after the South Carolina game? They're really, by the time you get to this point, there really isn't a whole lot that anybody can say that hasn't already been said by every coach, every player that's here. You know, it's all redundant. Everybody's happy to be here. Everybody's excited to play. Everybody respects the other teams, and you know, every game's going to be difficult. Lots of great players in the tournament. So all that is absolutely true, and we deserve to be here, just like the other three teams do. You know, we've earned the right to be here, and we're going to play a great team tomorrow night. And if we play better than they do, they're going to win. I mean, we're going to win, and if they play better than we do, they're going to win. And it's no more complicated than that. And we're going to go to practice after this, and we're going to prepare and get ready and come out and play.
Thanks, Coach. We'll take questions for the student athletes. We'll take our first one here from Michelle.
Hi, good morning. Michelle Smith from The Athletic. Gabby and Kia, I was in that locker room with you guys last year after the Mississippi State game when a lot of you guys were talking about wanting to remember how this felt and bringing it forward to the next season. Do you want to tap into how you felt in that locker room last year when you take the court?
You want to take that first, Kia?
I mean, yeah, I think that's something that is not easily forgotten, something that you shouldn't forget and you can use to a certain extent in the right way. But I think at the same time, as we step on the court this time around and we go out, we're focused on what we need to do to execute and be successful offensively and defensively against the Fighting Irish.
Yeah, I mean, just you know what Kia said, and we're just gonna be focused on tomorrow. I mean, I think we've been trying to tap into that all year. It's not something that we're just gonna bring up just at the Final Four. It's something that we've been remembering throughout the entire year. But it's a completely different game plan tomorrow. We're just gonna focus on having a good practice today.
Next question right here in the front.
Rich Capola, Fox Hartford. For both of you, do you think as a team, now some teams come out and they can play with a lot of, when they're really emotional, they play better, and when they're not really emotional, they don't quite have that energy. In some ways, you kind of guys the opposite, that you're better off when you're just calm and not a real emotional team?
Can you start, Kia?
I would say to a certain extent, we always come out with a type of emotion, and you can see it in a lot of the plays. You can see it in a lot of the celebrations that we have, celebrating each other's success. But at the same time, there's a fine balance and a fine line between being a calm and under control team, controlling the tempo to what you want it to be, in order to be successful with your game plan.
Gabby?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily that. It's just the right kind of emotion. It's not having no emotion or having emotion. It's just having the right kind of emotion. And like she said, as long as you can be emotional and excited for your teammates and celebrating and passionate about what you're doing, but if you have it under control, then you can use it to your advantage.
Question here from Doug.
Doug Feinberg, the AP. For both you guys, you played Notre Dame back in December. It was a really good game. They were up, I think, double digits in the fourth quarter. You came back and won it. I remember asking about South Carolina. You played them, and it was a 25-point win. And what do you learn from that? But this one, I'm sure, was fresh in your minds that they gave you a pretty good challenge. What did you learn from that game that will help you tomorrow?
Do you want to start, Kia?
Well, I think there's a number of things. Obviously, every time that we play Notre Dame, they come out and they give a good fight, and they compete, and it's a competitive game for a full 40 minutes. So for us, it's a matter of learning from what we could execute better, what we could have been better defensively from that game, but also understanding that we're at a different point in the season, and hopefully we've cleaned up a lot of those little things that we wanted to be better at without that game.
Yeah, it's a team that we're very familiar with each other. We've played each other a lot throughout these years, and there's nothing that we can do that's going to surprise them. There's nothing that they're going to do that's going to surprise us, because we've just played them so many times. So like Coach said, whoever plays better tomorrow is going to win.
Anything else for the student athletes? One final question in the back there.
Michelle Vopel, ESPN.com. Gabby, that was the game against Notre Dame was kind of a tough game for you. You weren't feeling well. I mean, it was a little bit of a struggle, and I'm just wondering if how much that game sort of you came out of that and saying, hey, I don't want to go through that kind of thing again.
Yeah, that wasn't a fun game for me. Just trying to put it behind me and just let the game come to me tomorrow and just be fresh, have a fresh mind, and just be ready for it.
Thank you, ladies. They will be available in the locker room until 12:40. We'll take questions for Coach Oriema. We'll start right here in the front with Doug.
Hey, Coach. Doug Feinberg, AP.
Hey.
I mean, there was a stretch a few years back when this would be the fourth meeting of the season between you
I know.
guys, and it was 16 games in 4 years.
Yeah.
And you could probably call their plays for them, they call your plays for you. Is this easier now in a sense that you played them once this year, but it was 3 months ago, and it isn't the fourth time? There isn't this extra rivalry crap that we bring up for you.
Yeah. I spoke with Muffet last night at an event for the 4 teams, and we talked about exactly that. She said, I don't even think about you guys anymore until it's time to play you, whereas before it was a constant. No matter what else was happening, you knew there was a possibility that you were going to play each other 4 times, and you're right, like 16 games in such a short period of time, to the point where now it does obviously seem way different. It does seem easier I think on the coaches to not have to constantly be confronted with Notre Dame this, Notre Dame that, Connecticut this, Connecticut that. We have our players competing against their players for Player of the Year or whatever the case may have been back in those days. But they're not going away. They've been around for a long time. We're not going away. So in one sense, I'm thrilled that it's at a whole different level. But she knows and I know we're always there, and they're always there. And the neat thing about it is, after every game in December now, I just say to her all the time, I'll see you in March. because I know if I see you in March, it's going to be in the Final Four. So that's cool.
Question here in the front.
Gino, could you talk a bit about Crystal's evolution? I think last year you were saying for her the basket is a rumor, that kind of stuff. And obviously she seemed to come back with a lot of confidence this year. What sort of changed? And I think you were saying the other night, when she is feeling the worst with her shin splints, is it literally that she can't practice?
Yeah, she doesn't practice. I mean, there was I bet you it's been a month where we go to practice. Well, when's the last time we played South Carolina? Before the other night. Okay, so from February 1st to now, it's been off and on all that time, where if we're working on something half court, she'll come out and she'll be involved. The minute we start going up and down, she's over on the bike. So it's really difficult to maintain any sense of the rhythm that you're in, that you need to be in. And I was really, I mean, I felt for her because going back to November and December, there wasn't any guard in America playing way better than her. I mean, she was unbelievable in what she was doing. And I think she would have been able to sustain it. But unfortunately, it didn't play out that way. But where she was the other night, that's the kid that we recruited. That's the kid that I saw, you know. We saw glimpses of it last year in the Baylor game, you know, as a freshman. You know, and after the game, she's being interviewed by all of you. You know, the room was full, big game, national television. And she's like, yeah, I like to think I'm a big game player. I'll never forget that quote. I didn't realize she meant one big game a year, you know. But that was kind of a glimpse of this is what I can do. And this is where she gets an opportunity to prove that.
Question here in the aisle.
Gino, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch. Over the past decade or two, if you want, how have you seen the women's game change, evolve, and how have you adapted to that change?
Well, I mean, it's interesting that it goes in, you know, in cycles, and there's ebbs and flows to the game. There was a time when the Final Four was limited to certain schools. It was like college football, you know, like the preseason top 7. 4 of those teams are going to the playoffs. You kind of knew, all right, these teams are going to be at least in the Final 8 and probably get to the Final 4. And then every once in a while, you'd have somebody sneak in. And then it'd be right back to all the number 1 seeds, and they were always the same. And then somebody would sneak in. And then all of a sudden, 2 years ago, you had 3 teams that had never been there. And you go, wow, maybe this is the future. And now we're right back to 4 number 1 seeds. Except 2 of the number 1 seeds are not your traditional Final Four teams in the last 15 years. So the game is changed where more people have access to the Final Four, more people have access to the regional finals, the regionals. So that means the game has grown, and it's grown in every part of the country instead of just certain parts of the country, like it used to be when I first started. It still has miles to go, long way to go, you know. That's our job, I think, to help push it in that direction. And all you can do is hope that the kids coming out of high school really appreciate all the work that's been done to make it possible for them to have an opportunity, you know, to play in this environment. Our first Final Four, we played on a college campus, and there was 8,500 people at the game and 1 TV station, and you know, people would see you walk around town and go, where are you visiting from? We're here to play a Final Four game. What's that? You know, so it's come a long way in some respects, but we got so far to go, which is kind of exciting, to be honest with you.
Question
And the
right-
level of talent is off the charts. Way off the charts.
Question right there. Yeah.
Tim May, Columbus Dispatch. Gino, what was the most exotic trip you guys took in '85 and '86? And number two, following up on that, you guys have played in all four corners of the country this year. You've played in the middle of the country. I think you went to Italy preseason. Yeah. I think you might have played in Canada. How has that helped prepare this team for like a tournament, for what you face in a tournament?
My first year, what would be the most exotic trip? Pittsburgh. You know, it was like back in, you know, we were like Revolutionary War. You know, we have to go to Fort Pitt, like, I don't know, fight off the French and Indians or something. I don't know, back in the day. And we bussed everywhere. And everybody threw $10 on the table and said, okay, how much can we eat with that total for the whole team? It seems like almost another century ago, and now this year we're in Europe for 10 days in August. We're in, you know, at UCLA, and then we fly up to Oregon, and then we go to Nevada, and then we're in Florida a couple times. We're in Texas a couple times, and we go to Chicago. I mean, it's ridiculous, and I think in some ways the players were really innocent back then, so every little thing was a big deal. And today, I don't know what phases them. I don't know what makes them go, wow, except this does. So all that stuff that we do, I think our kids appreciate it, but they've come to kind of expect that. But when they get to this, that's when it really pops for them. So all those other trips are great, but nothing compares to this.
Question here in the front.
Gino, you were just talking about how far the game has come. Okay, so every year about this time of year, we read or hear from somebody, maybe more than one person, about how far the game has not come.
Right, right.
What's good for it and what's not.
Right.
Even though they may not have seen all that, you know, all that many games. So how do you deal with that? What goes through your head when you read and hear that kind of stuff?
Well, when I see somebody weigh in on our game, that would be like me weighing in on and doing a 30-minute piece on ESPN on curling. I don't know shit about curling. I know it looks cool on TV. I know nothing about it. So the same people could have won curling for the last 50 years. I had no idea. So there's people that have never seen a women's game, have never talked to a women's basketball player or a women's basketball coach, and they have an opinion at this time of the year. And their opinion usually involves Connecticut. So how are we bad for the game when we made you pay attention even that much? And you never used to pay attention. The fact that you're giving it negative attention, well, you took time out of your really busy day, because no one else would talk to you, to comment on our game. So that, it makes me like kind of, yeah, you're as stupid as I thought you were. Then the younger me wants to respond publicly or privately. And then me, my age, goes, why would you respond to that? So I just hold it in and just kind of, you know, move along and wait for a guy I'm friends with to ask me so I can tell him how I really feel.
Question right here, Michelle.
Gina, down here. Hi. Two questions. How many times have you explicitly asked your kids to tap into that feeling they had in the locker room after Mississippi State last year? And do you make an effort to try and bring something new to this experience for the kids that have been here a few times? Do you try and find something or an angle or something new so that it's a new experience in some way?
The Mississippi State game, for me, ended when the buzzer went off, and I never gave it another minute's thought. There's only been a couple times in practice this year where I've brought it up, and never in the sense of trying to motivate them or try to elicit some kind of, motivation about revenge or anything like that. If we had lost 3 straight times in the semifinals, in the Final Four, and those kids had never won a national championship that played in that game, maybe my response would have been way different. So for me, it ended the minute the buzzer went off. For our players, God bless them. I love every one of my players. They're like the nicest kids on the planet. And when they tell you, yeah, we'll never forget how we felt, seriously. They couldn't remember what time we said practice is this afternoon. So when we play the game tomorrow, it will be something that they will remember. But all the way up until now, I haven't seen one shred of evidence that says, wow, they're carrying this around with them. Like when we lost in 2001 to Notre Dame, and Shea didn't play, and Svetlana didn't play, and we had 2 All-Americans sitting out because of injuries, and we were up a bunch and we lost. When Sue and Dee and Asia and Tamika and Swin, when they showed up September 1st, the first day of school, the look in their eyes, and every day that I saw them walking around campus, in my office, at practice, in the locker room, there was a look like somebody every day is going to pay for what happened last year. You could feel it. I don't get that. I don't see any of that.
Question here from Doug.
Gino, we didn't really talk about it on Monday in Albany, but you passed Wooden's record for Final Fours in a row with 11 and passed Pat's record for overall with 19. I know you hate talking about history in that standpoint, but do you still carry the Wooden book around with you in your briefcase? And, I mean, perspective-wise, 11 straight Final Four is something that no one's ever done before, and 19 total. What does that mean to you as a coach?
That book that I had in my briefcase, I happened to be reading it at the time, and I happened to be carrying it around, and I put it in my briefcase, and I would read a little bit of it at a time, and I would kind of look at it every once in a while. Some of it was because it reminded me of a bunch of stuff that when I was a kid, in high school, playing basketball and watching them play in the NCAA tournament. It almost had nothing to do with where I was at that point in time as a coach and where their program was and all that. And it wasn't until almost after the fact that I started to really pay attention and started to go, man, I can't tell you how many things are in this that they did, that we did and are doing. The players that they had, the players that we have, the circumstances that they were winning under, the circumstances that we're winning under. And God rest his soul. I'm glad Coach Wooden never had to go through the nonsense he would have to go through today if he was doing what he did. Everybody just left him alone and said, yeah, he's the greatest coach of all time, and that's the greatest program of all time. And they left it at that. And I gave that book to a friend of mine who really admired Coach Wooden, so I don't have it anymore. And all these other records and all this other stuff, it's when I'm reminded of that stuff, it really makes me incredulous that that could happen.
Question in the back.
It really
here.
does.
Coach Taylor Ashbrook, EBSN Online. I was just wondering, you know, we talk about it just about every year when you guys are here, just people just seeming to chirp up and saying that you guys are boring or that, you know, it's bad for the sport, you know. And I know some people say it to a smaller degree when it comes to people like, you know, the New England Patriots or Alabama football, but just what is it about great teams, and especially great teams in women's athletics, that people just want to slander them for whatever reason? Is there any, do you have any thought process on that at all?
Well, the easy answer is when you don't understand something, you either have two choices. One, just want to learn more about it, don't comment on it until you do. Or two, you automatically don't like it. So you have to comment that you don't like it. The other easy answer is we live in a sexist world, that no matter how much you want to pretend that we're not, pretend we've made progress, pretend that things are way better, every opportunity that that segment gets to take a shot at a women's accomplishment, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. And the interesting part is it doesn't happen that much, almost never, in individual sports. I've not read too much about Serena being bad for women's tennis. Last time I checked, she wins most of them when she's healthy and ready to go. I've not read too much about Roger Federer is really bad for men's tennis. The only time he doesn't win is when he doesn't win, which is not often. I remember when when Tiger was just destroying the PGA field and people saying, that guy's terrible for golf, no one else can compete. So it's directed at us, specifically, women's team sports, and especially college kids. They're not even pros. And it's directed at them. And to me, like, what do you gain by that? And the natural reaction is you want to respond and lash out and come back at them. And that's probably the worst thing that you can do. But I know it's hard not to. So the way we respond to it, how we deal with it, we just say, look, this is what we do for a living. We coach as hard as we can. We get our kids to do stuff that's really hard to do. We get them to do it better than anybody else has done it, ever. And those kids are entitled to the kind of success that they have, and people should appreciate what they do. Plain and simple.
We have time for 2 more questions. We'll go here and over here.
You know, you talked about how the game has changed, certainly over the last 15 years or so. Every few years you'll say to us it gets tougher and tougher, something about the kids or whatever. Yet, maybe the game has changed, maybe the kids changed to some degree, but the level of excellence and the consistency over such a period of time doesn't change. Can you put your finger on why you've been able to do that?
Again, there's easy answers to all these questions. And I could go, you know, and give you the same easy answer that those people that we were just talking about will give you about Connecticut and why we're bad for the game. It's because every good player coming out of high school goes to Connecticut. No other good player goes to any other school in America. I don't know how Walls and Muffet and Vic got here with such bad players when Connecticut has all the bad players, has all the great players. So the easy answer is we have the absolute best players in America. Everybody else we play against is a terrible player. That explains our success. So that's the easy answer. The true answer is we get the kind of kids that fit exactly what we want, what we do, and how we do things. That doesn't mean they were, and that doesn't mean they weren't the best players coming out of high school. For sure they were. But we've been very, very fortunate, for the most part, to get those kids that come out of high school and they want to be coached the way I coach. And they're not afraid to walk into our building, look up at the walls, see those names and see those banners and go, I got this. They're not intimidated by it. And what else can I say?
Question right here. Final question.
Hi, Gino. Could you tell me a little bit about Kia's personality? And she seems to have such an adult-like presence for your team. How much of her personality has really evolved over 4 years? Did she come to you as a pretty polished person?
You know, when you grow up in the family that Kia grew up in, one, you better grow up fast because everybody in that family is high intensity, high achievers. You know, you've got a mom that played in college, you got a dad that played professional football, you got a brother who's playing in the NHL, you got a sister that played college basketball. So you better grow up fast. And the other part is you also understand what it's like to be the other person for a long time in your family. And when she got to Connecticut as a freshman, it was, she's the other kid on the team. You know, when you think about the iconic players we had on our team when she got here as a freshman, it was like probably being in her own family. Everybody ahead of her was a superstar in their own right. And it was for her, hey, I've grown up with this. And little by little, each year, she's been able to take on a little bit bigger role. But she's never forgotten that it's still about how do you play your role to the best of your ability and not try to be something else. So she makes more shots now than she did. She's more confident now than she used to be because she knows she's earned it. She came to the sidelines in the Notre Dame game her freshman year at Notre Dame in a crazy, crazy environment. And she would just take the ball and put her head down and go to the basket, either score or get fouled. And she was playing like way above her years as a freshman, and walked over to the sideline. And I asked her a question, and she looked me in the eye, and she couldn't speak. Literally, she's like that. And I went, by the way, you know, you're playing great. I'd hate to see you if you were playing lousy. And in her mind, like, I can't believe I'm doing this. This is my first year. I'm playing as good as, not maybe even better, than the superstars that I admire. Well, now she doesn't look like that anymore. Like, I belong here. I'm one of the older guys. This is what I do. I've earned it. I'm thrilled for her. She deserves it.
Thank you, Coach. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today.
Thanks, everybody.
If you need anything else, you can speak to Connecticut Sports Information Director Anna Labonte.
Where are you going? You said to me, they roll by the